filed an injunction against an Illinois school district asking a judge to disallow schools from allowing students to have a moment of silence. They weren't even praying. An atheist said he didn't want the students to have a moment of silence because they might think about God. This is how bad the attacks on our culture and our morals and our beliefs have gotten. So the answer is we've got to push back and fight back. In the short term and the long term. In the long term, the way we address the issues, we've got to elect a president that will appoint judges and Supreme Court judges that will not have this permissive attitude about attacks on our culture. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we face. When you all elect me President of the United States of America, if I run, wink, wink. I was explaining that I have to continue to be exploratory mode because the unemployment rate in the country is 15 million people are unemployed, and as soon as I become a declared candidate, John, it'll be 15 million and one. I'm trying to keep the unemployment down. I'd have to get off my corporate boards. I've already taken a hiatus from a radio show. So publicly, I am still in the exploratory mode. And judges, in my opinion, should have 3 qualifications in addition to understanding the Constitution. Starts with understand and interpret the Constitution. The other 3 qualifications that I will insist on for judges to be appointed by me would be they must be conservative, conservative, and conservative.
Amen. What about conservative?
And maybe one more conservative, but I don't like to go past 3. People forget everything once you get past 3, John. Now, here is how the liberals are attacking conservatives. They define interpreting the Constitution. They don't define that as conservative. They define that as right-wing. They define it as right-wing. We've got to reset the pendulum here such that conservative means interpreting the Constitution and observing the Declaration of Independence and all of the laws that go with it. For the President to instruct the Justice Department not to enforce the Defense of Marriage Act is a breach of oath, in my opinion. It's a breach of oath. So the moral crisis we face, and just like all of the other crises that we must address, we got to have the right people that are leading this nation and in the right decision-making positions. We got a number of crises. I'm not going to elaborate. Many of them I touch on in the little booklet. The reason I call it common sense solutions is because it is common sense. It's not rocket science. It just takes the right type of leadership in order to be able to pass some of these ideas. So in addition to the moral crisis, we have an economic crisis. We got an entitlement crisis. The only way we're going to change the entitlement mindset in this country is we're going to have to restructure these programs. One of my guiding principles is when we restructure these programs, restructure them such that it helps people to help themselves, not help people to become dependent. And right now, the programs just make people that much more dependent, and it doesn't provide any encouragement for them to become independent and not reliant upon government. So we got an entitlement challenge. We've got an energy crisis because we don't have an energy independence strategy. We could have. We have all of the resources. We are the OPEC of coal, the OPEC of natural gas. We've got plenty of oil in our outer continental shelf and in Alaska. But we've got too many regulations that are restricting and discouraging companies from going and developing this technology. I was meeting with some oil men out in Texas about a month ago, and they were talking about the discovery of shale oil, which is a great source of natural gas that they now have discovered a find in South Dakota and the western states. And because of the technology that has been developed, he said that just in the shale oil areas with this new technology, there's enough natural gas to last 200 years. But because the government and the environmental wackos don't want to drill down with this technology, the Interior Department has put restrictions on them being able to do that. It doesn't make any sense. So we can have an energy independence strategy. We have an immigration crisis. And the reason that the current government, the current administration, and even the previous administration has not really got its hands around the immigration crisis is simply because it's not one problem. It's four. It's not one problem. One of my guiding principles is make sure you're working on the right problem. Make sure you're working on the right problem. We got to secure the borders, enforce the laws that are there, enforce the path to citizenship that's already there. We don't need a new one. And the one that's there is not that complicated. I looked it up. It's just that we got too much bureaucracy in ICE, Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, that can't keep the system moving, can't keep the process smooth. We need to fix the problem in terms of the bureaucracy in ICE. I even heard the head of ICE say publicly he does not have enough money to do his job, which involves enforcement and customs enforcement. Well, if he doesn't have enough money to do his job, doesn't have enough money to enforce, they ought to change the name to IC instead of ICE, since he's not enforcing anything. Just IC, enforcement and customs. And so my point is, you got to put the right priorities on these problems that we identify. And the fourth immigration problem is, what do you do with the illegals that are already here? You empower the states. Right now, the laws at the federal level won't allow the states to do what the federal government is not doing. So empower the states. You don't go sue Arizona. That's ridiculous. You change the laws that empowers the states to do what the federal government is not doing. So the first three, yes, we've got to have something coming out of Washington, D.C., coming from the federal government. But number 4 is empower the states. Another one of my guiding principles. Empower the states, empower businesses, empower people, empower school districts, empower parents. Put the responsibility where it can best be executed and best be carried out. The federal government has not successfully micromanaged anything in its history. When was the last time the federal government fixed something? Time's up. Sadly, they don't fix anything. Social Security is about to go off a cliff. Medicare messed up. Medicaid issues. So they passed a new disaster called healthcare reform. I call it healthcare deform because reform is supposed to make it better. This has made it worse. 1,000 companies have asked for waivers and have gotten it. That tells you something's wrong with it right there. And so one of my guiding principles is make sure we're working on the right problems. We know how to fix stuff. We just have not had the right leadership in order to be able to do it. That's why I put my toe in the water. Because even though we have a strong field of potential Republican nominees for various reasons with various abilities and skills and backgrounds, I felt inspired to also put my toe in the water because of how my life has unfolded. I was first blessed with a 40-year business career, very successful, not bragging, just making an observation. I was very successful. I'm not a multi-cajillionaire or anything like that, but I can, comfortably retire, play golf 3 times a week, travel, eat myself sick, whatever I want to do, not have to get up and go to work. I could do that. I could have chosen that. In fact, all my life I worked to get to the point where I would be able to get in what I call cruise control of life. But a strange thing happened on the way to cruise control. God had a different plan. Everybody in life, you have two plans. You have your plan and God's plan. And sometimes God does not show you his plan all at once because you couldn't handle it. He sometimes let it unfold little by little. And in my case, that's what he did. I prayed for a successful career because of my parents who came from very humble beginnings. God granted me that successful career. 40 years, worked for the Coca-Cola Company, worked for the Department of the Navy, worked for the Pillsbury Company, climbed the corporate ladder, all the way up to vice president, changed careers, went to work with Burger King. Where's Jenna? Jenna? Oh, there she is. See, I didn't forget you. Worked for Burger King, reclimbed the corporate ladder again, became a vice president of Burger King. Then they appointed me president and CEO of Godfather's Pizza. When I took over Godfather's Pizza, it had 725 restaurants. 700 of them were losing money. It was going bankrupt. Pillsbury had already decided that they were going to basically write it off, cut their losses. But I didn't get the memo that said it was supposed to go bankrupt, so we decided to fix it, and we did. So I had a very successful business career. Ran the National Restaurant Association for 2.5 years. Then 10 years ago decided to serve on boards, write books, give speeches, play golf. But in 1999, my first grandchild was born. That changed everything. When she was born in 1999 and I first looked in her face, the first thought that crossed my mind was, what do I do to make this a better world? Prior to that, it was all about, what do I do to make some more money? I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be comfortable. I wanted the stuff of life. Until I realized that there was more to life than that. And then in 2004, I thought that what God wanted me to do was to run for the United States Senate. So I did. I didn't ask permission from the Republican Party or the party father. I just woke up one morning and said, I'm going to run for the Senate. Came within 2 percentage points. 2 percentage points. With the 50% name ID, when I started it, I had a 0% name ID statewide in Georgia. It came within 2 percentage points of forcing a runoff with the congressman who had been a 6-year congressman who ultimately won the nomination and went on to become now Senator Johnny Isakson. So at first I thought God was saying, nah, I don't want you to hold public office. And I later learned that that wasn't the message. The message was he wanted me to see how tough it would be to win. How tough and how hard it would be to win. So I learned from that 2 major lessons. If I ever run for anything again, start early and hire good people early. And that's why I stuck my toe in the water early relative to this presidential exploratory.